The strong voices of these fishermen sound like the English of the West Country, Dorset, Devon, or Cornwall.
It's from 4 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock at night, 6 days a week. Rain, snow, ice, wind. It doesn't make any difference. We have to go. We're like the mailman, I guess.
In fact, this is America's Chesapeake Bay, and these are the descendants of some of the first settlers to venture across the Atlantic.
They all say I talk slow, so I'm aware of that, and that's the way I am. I can't help it.
This is the story of the English of William Shakespeare and the King James Bible, and how it was brought to the New World by the Elizabethans.
The Story of English, funded by a grant from General Foods Corporation. General Foods, where ideas are growing to satisfy a demanding world. And the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation.
This is Montacute House in Somerset, one of the counties whose oaks and yeomen provided the ships and sailors for England's exploration of the New World. This was the century of the English Renaissance, and Montacute, built in the shape of an E, is the fitting symbol of the Elizabethan flowering, traditionally the golden age of the English language. Queen Elizabeth I and her successor, James, reigned for about 70 years. During that time, the English language reached heights that have inspired us ever since, and even contemporaries marveled at. For the English, that was a time of national triumph. They were as proud of their words as they were of defying the Pope or defeating the Spanish Armada. Sir Philip Sidney, the poet and soldier, spoke for his countrymen when he wrote, "For the uttering sweetly and properly the conceit of the mind, English hath it equally with any other tongue in the world." To describe this brave new world of discovery and invention, the self-confident English vernacular borrowed a staggering total of 12,000 new words. Men of letters like Sir Thomas More look back to classical models for hundreds of Latin words like active, communicate, education. Men of science like Sir Francis Bacon took their inspiration from the Greek and introduced terms like thermometer, pneumonia, skeleton, encyclopedia. And there was one writer whose work lies at the heart of the Elizabethan miracle, whom Johnson singled out for what he called his mastery of the diction of common life, or as we'd put it, everyday speech. And of course, that was William Shakespeare. There are many legends, but almost nothing certain is known about the greatest writer in our story. He was born here in Stratford-on-Avon, deep in the English countryside. He was educated at the local grammar school. At the age of 18, he married Anne Hathaway, who lived here, and they had 2 children. In his 20s, he left all this behind and appeared as an actor in London, where he wrote poems and 37 plays. In late middle age, he returned to Stratford as a successful gentleman of means and built a large house. Only his knot garden remains. Today, Stratford is a mecca for Shakespeare lovers, actors and audiences alike throughout the world. Penny Downey has come from Australia to play Titania in a Royal Shakespeare Company interpretation of A Midsummer Night's Dream.
His mother was a votress of my order, and in the spiced Indian air, by night, full often has she gossiped by my side, and sat with me on Neptune's yellow sands, marking the embarked traders on the flood, when we have laughed to see the sails conceive and grow big-bellied in the wanton wind, which she with pretty and with swimming gait following, her womb then rich with my young squire would imitate, and sail upon the land to fetch me trifles, and return again as from a voyage rich with merchandise. But she, being mortal, of that boy did die, and for her sake do I rear up her boy, and for her sake I will not part with him. So is mine iron.
As well as such high-flown imagery, Shakespeare's poetry, rich with the vocabulary of his native Warwickshire, reflects his country origins. Terms like ballow, meaning a cudgel, honey stalks for red clover, mobled, a local word for muffled, and gleek, meaning to sing.
The more the pity that some honest neighbours will not make them friends. Nay, I can gleek upon occasion.
Shakespeare's language ranges from the russet yeas and nays of fools and rustics like Bottom the Weaver here, to the taffeta phrases, silken terms precise, of kings and fairies.
I am a spirit of no common rate, and summer still doth tend upon my state. And I do love thee, therefore go with me. I'll give thee fairies to attend on thee, and they shall fetch thee jewels from the deep, and sing while thou on pressed flowers doth sleep. And I will purge thy mortal grossness so that thou shalt, like an airy spirit, go.
His plays have every kind of spoken English. Pidgin with Caliban, philosophical with Hamlet, bawdy with Falstaff, heroic with Henry V, and pastoral lyrical with Titania.
The moon, methinks, looks with a watery eye, and when she weeps, weeps every little flower lamenting some enforced chastity.
For many years, one of the Royal Shakespeare Company's leading directors was John Barton.
My obsession with Shakespeare is to do with so many elements, and I hate in a way to talk about it because it's the whole of those elements that I love. But it's partly, obviously, his sense of character, it's partly his sense of dramatic situation, very much his story, but perhaps in the end, above all, and what first drew me to him.
Sir Peter Hall, formerly with the Royal Shakespeare Company, now directs the National Theatre.
Shakespeare is the most comprehensive genius in terms of sensibility and understanding of humanity, and the greatest writer. He had the greatest means of expressing that breadth of anyone I've ever encountered. It needs saying regularly, but it's true.
It's impossible to quantify the relationship between the development of the language and a writer of genius like Shakespeare. But this, the first folio of his plays, the source for scores of Shakespearean words and phrases, had a direct influence on every one of us who speaks English today.
He had an inexhaustible passion for words. He has the largest vocabulary of any writer in English, approximately 34,000 words, which is about double what an educated person uses today in their lifetime.
In one famous passage, Shakespeare uses just 2 words from his prodigious vocabulary with arresting boldness. The murderer, Macbeth, laments that the blood on his hands would stain even the ocean.
This my hand will rather the multitudinous seas incarnadine, making the green one red.
As well as multitudinous and incarnadine, the long list of new words and uses that gain currency from the folio include accommodation, premeditated, assassination, submerged, and obscene. In Love's Labour's Lost, he could almost have been writing his own epitaph when he describes Don Armado as a man of fire-new words.
I mean, I think it's no accident that Shakespeare spelled his own name by a whole variety of ways. I mean, spelling was a matter of taste. As part of that freedom, I think we should see the fact that you can invent words. Shakespeare invented more words than anybody who's ever lived. And no one apparently ever commented on that at the time. It just was a fact. So there was an enormous sense of freedom, creative freedom.
The actors who spoke his lines also found him playing with the grammar of English. Nouns could become verbs. In Measure for Measure, he writes that Lord Angelo dukes it well in his absence. For Hamlet, the student prince, he writes, out Herod's Herod. In Troilus and Cressida, Ulysses says, he pageants us. And in Richard II, the Duke of York says,
Doth grace mean no grace, no uncle mean no uncle. I am no traitor's uncle.
But above all, Shakespeare gave the London audiences who flocked to his plays at the Globe a wealth of quotable quotes. One play alone is a thesaurus of phrases that have become almost cliches. Frailty, thy name is woman, a truant disposition, take him for all in all, more in sorrow than in anger, the primrose path, to the manor born, the time is out of joint, brevity is the soul of wit, more matter with less art, the play's the thing, to be or not to be, the lady doth protest too much, hoist with his own petard, cruel to be kind, yeoman's service, a palpable hit, the rest is silence.
Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears! This happy breed of men, this little world, this precious stone set in the silver sea.
The quality of mercy is not strained. It droppeth as the gentle rain from heaven upon the place beneath.
How beauteous mankind is! Oh, brave new world that has such people in it. Nothing.
Nothing will come of nothing.
The first folio preserved Shakespeare's writing, but what we've lost is the music of his words. How, for example, might a speech from Julius Caesar have sounded in Shakespeare's own day?
Wherefore rejoice, what conquest brings he home? What tributaries follow him to Rome, to grace in captive bonds his chariot wheels? You blocks, you stones, you worse than senseless thing. I'm always terribly worried when I work with modern actors on Shakespeare that the state of modern English is so clipped and grey and uninflected, and our vowels are so short. What we know of Elizabethan speech is much richer, much more akin to Northern Ireland or American accent in the assonance and richness of the vowel. And the problem is, unless you have those rich vowels, it's sometimes quite difficult to make the lines scan, and particularly it's difficult to appreciate their music, their assonance, the real weight of sound that they ought to have.
Compare this modern reading of the prologue to Henry V with this presumed Shakespearean pronunciation.
Fuse of fire that would ascend the brightest heaven of invention, a kingdom for a stage, princes to act, and monarchs to behold the swelling scene. Then should the warlike Harry, like himself, assume the port of Mars, and at his heels, lashed in like hounds, should famine, sword, and fire crouch for employment.
Professor Stanley Ellis has studied varieties of English all his life. He still finds Elizabethan speech patterns in the English West Country.
When people reproduce Shakespeare's pronunciation nowadays, so far as they know, pronunciations of words like time and life were in the 16th century something like time and life. And you've got these lovely vowel sounds followed by an R, which is probably a retention of the old Anglo-Saxon R, the R that was still used after vowels in spelling and in pronunciation in Shakespeare's time. And of course other things that Shakespeare used as well are still current down in the southwest. IZ, IZ, the Varma, that use of the voiced Z instead of S and V instead of F. These are the sort of things that perhaps a modern actor will use when he wants to indicate that he's using a country accent. And these are the sort of things, too, that Shakespeare used.
It's sometimes claimed that you have to go to remote parts of America to hear Elizabethan English. In fact, the counties of the West Country still preserve strong echoes of Elizabethan talk. In Devon, Dorset, Somerset, Gloucestershire, and the other counties of the region, there are places like Kingham, whose linguistic roots lie deep in the 16th century. Tom Eaton has worked these Cotswold uplands for 50 years. His speech has the elongated vowels and rolled R that we've just heard about. Listen to how he pronounces farm, five, and life.
A lot of people think that farming's all pleasure, you know, but people come for holidays, they say, oh, lovely life, farm life, and it's like this, but when you're at it every day, it's not so good, I must say. All weathers. Well, we reckon to finish about 5 in the winter and the dark nights, of course. Start about 6 in the morning, finish about 5 and through the winter time. 7 days a week, nearly all the time, of course. But I suppose you get used to it, you're bred and born to it, and you just take it as it comes, I suppose.
Time and again, Shakespeare's poetry reminds us of his country boyhood.
There's the old story of Hamlet saying there's a divinity that shapes our ends, rough hew them how we will, and of a person not so many years ago meeting an old hedge cutter in the lane with his assistant and asking him what he was doing, and the reply was, he rough hews them and I shape their ends.
I believe Shakespeare had a Warwickshire accent and probably held on to it for all his life. People were not ashamed of their accents, they kept them, and there was that kind of diversity. And the idea of standard speech was not accepted at all in that time. And he seems, by everything we know about him, to have remained very proudly a Warwickshire man. I think if you love the plays and you read the plays and you see the plays and you walk around Warwickshire, it does come together. There's nowhere closer to Shakespeare than Warwickshire, the Warwickshire countryside and the Warwickshire villages.
closest we can come to the sound of Shakespeare's own speech is in the little villages around Stratford itself. The cider drinkers of Elmley Castle in neighboring Worcestershire still speak English in a way that Shakespeare himself would recognize.
Two, Tom. Bad luck, too. Oh, what a shame.
Well, I used to take cider or homemade wine to school when I was 5 years of age, so that's 54 years ago, that is.
I shall have five this morning, I hope. And 3 pints of beer tonight and a pint of cider with me supper. And then to bed. I know I don't catch a cold.
Remember that, Tom? We don't know what it was now. You took up the old farmhouse, Roberts's, the farmers, and get a quart jug of cider, and anybody in the village could all have as much cider as long as it lasted, like, you know, through the year, like. And take a quart jug up and bring a quart jug of cider back and warm it up in a saucepan, and that's all we had then. And if I had a sore throat, it was brimstone and treacle.
That's right.
And if you didn't behave yourself, I could smack task and upstairs straight to bed.
Well, you wanted it,
yeah, well, you wanted it, well, you didn't.
Bear in mind that cider drinking will kill you. It definitely will. It killed my father, cider drinking did. It took 84 years to do it, though.
What's it like?
Very good.
As we'll see, it was the speech of people like these that went with the Elizabethan seafarers to America. This golden age also saw a publication that has probably had an even greater influence than Shakespeare's first folio on the language of ordinary people. The translation of the Bible into the English of the Authorized Version. Here at last was the Word of God, expressed in terms that everyone could understand. Bring hither the fatted calf and kill it. Lord, now lettest thou thy servant depart in peace according to thy word. Physician, heal thyself. For many are called, but few are chosen. All they that take the sword shall perish with the sword. Where Shakespeare drew on his teeming vocabulary of 34,000 words, the new translation achieved the majestic effects of its prose with barely 8,000.
In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day.
It's an interesting reflection on the state of the language that the poetry of the Authorized Version came not from a single writer, but from a committee, some of whom worked here at the University of Cambridge. One of the translators was a certain John Boys, a fellow of St. John's College here in Cambridge. A brilliant scholar, he and 5 colleagues spent most of the year 1610 refining and revising the final draft. Their brief, to make the King James Bible not only read well in English, but sound well, a quality for which it's revered to this day. Let's compare a passage in Henry VIII's Great Bible with one in the King James Version. The Great Bible, in chapter 12 of Ecclesiastes, the preacher says, "Or ever the silver lace be taken away, or the gold band be broke, or the pot be broke at the well, and the wheel upon the cistern, then shall the dust be turned again unto earth from whence it came, and the spirit shall return unto God which gave it. All is but vanity, saith the preacher, all is but plain vanity." And the King James makes that into, "Or ever the silver cord be loosed, or the golden bowl be broken, or the pitcher be broken at the fountain, or the wheel broken at the cistern, then shall the dust return to the earth as it was, and the spirit shall return unto God who gave it. Vanity of vanities, saith the preacher, all is vanity." And I think you can see from that comparison that not only is the King James Version clearer, but a good deal more poetic.
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not.
Contemporary with the King James Bible, the Book of Common Prayer expresses the rites of passage in the English church. From the cradle to the grave. Renounce the devil and all his works. Give us this day our daily bread. With this ring I thee wed. Earth to earth, dust to dust, ashes to ashes. There's an air of innocence to the ease with which Shakespeare and his contemporaries, poets, playwrights, even translating committees, explored the language to the limits. At the end of the 16th century, this was the language, rich in vocabulary, bursting with innovation, that was first brought to the New World by adventurers like Francis Drake and Walter Raleigh. Sir Walter Raleigh, who had this farm in Devon, rolled his Devonshire R's to his dying day. His speech was actually parodied by Shakespeare, but he was a typical Elizabethan, renowned as a poet, statesman, and explorer, the sort of man people liked to gossip about. And he was the first to take English to the uncharted shores of the New World. In 1584, Raleigh, who'd always dreamed of setting up English cities overseas, sent 2 ships across the Atlantic. This was the first of 3 brave attempts to establish an English-speaking colony in the place he named Virginia in honor of his queen. The first of his ships made its landfall on the coast of North Carolina. In the words of the captain, very sandy and low towards the waterside. A settlement was established at a place they called Roanoke, after a local Indian expression. The second expedition to Roanoke was led by John White, a gifted amateur painter who kept a remarkable pictorial record of his experiences. At first, relations with the American tribes were good. In the next 100 years, English settlers picked up many Indian words to describe the unfamiliar scenes around them. Squaw and papoose, skunk, toboggan, moccasin, and chipmunk. American English eventually borrowed hundreds of Indian words, from wigwam to tomahawk. These first colonists also borrowed Indian turns of phrase, like bury the hatchet and go on the warpath. But the Roanoke adventure turned sour. Settlers and natives fought about scarce supplies. John White set off back to England for food and relief. On his return, he blew a trumpet to announce his arrival. His men sang English songs, but there was no answer. The Roanoke colony was deserted. To this day, the fate of Raleigh's settlement remains a mystery, but its place in history has been overshadowed. Almost a generation later, in 1607, 3 more English ships, like these, anchored in 6 fathoms of water off a wooded island. The sailors called it Jamestown, after their new king. From over the water, they could hear the cries of the native Indians, the first sounds from a vast and unexplored continent. After searching in vain down the coast for the Roanoke colony, these Jamestown settlers held on by the skin of their teeth and became the first English-speaking Americans. Many of the Virginians who lived here in Jamestown and who settled in colonies like Maryland and the Carolinas would have had strong West Country tones, like Walter Raleigh. Their distinctive burr became a fundamental characteristic of much American English. Here and there, in isolated communities on the East Coast, you can still catch the sound of those lost voices. We're in the middle of Chesapeake Bay, a vast estuary lying to the south and east of Washington, D.C. It's famous for its oysters and crabs. This is little Tangier Island. Here you can still hear a kind of language fossil, a variety of English that's probably changed very little since the first sailors from Cornwall landed here in the 1680s.
What a wretched man I am. You know, in the city this day and time, you see the devil so strong, and the people is just going right along with him. It's only when you accept Christ as your Savior that you have to buckle this tide.
Bend low beneath the burden of his load. It was across our...
The speech of these islanders, who are known as Tangerines, is a first cousin to the West Country English of Jamestown and Roanoke. The local speech survives because the community is tight-knit and tradition-minded. It changes slowly because this self-contained island is at least an hour by boat from the mainland. The same families, the Crockett's, the Pruitts, the Parks, and the Shores, have lived and died here for generations. And when the men are out on the water, Tangier Island is like a children's playground.
For the age of a little child until 10 or 12 years old, until they start getting really mischievous, Tangier Island is a paradise for children because there's no crime rate whatsoever around here except for maybe a speeding ticket every now and then.
It's a nice place and there ain't a lot of traffic and all. There's just about 4 cars on this island.
One of the special peculiarities of Tangier speech is the playful use of opposite meanings and double negatives.
They say, you ain't pretty now, and they mean you are pretty. You just say that you ain't a going, which you are, but if everybody does know, well, No, but they say about the town. And then like they say if they're this dressing it's real pretty, they say they ain't ugly and they mean it's pretty. Oh, you just say it, but everybody knows what you mean, because everybody says it around here, and they know what you mean when you do say it.
Our voice, our language hasn't changed since people first moved to Tangier Island. We still speak the same accent, or so some people have told us.
The waterman's day starts at 2:30 in the morning when they gather in Ray's Cafe.
Get up early in the morning, get in about 12, 1 o'clock. It's a long day while you're out there. That's what everybody does around here, so I don't know. Have to work on the water when you get out of school.
Listening to the talk along the coast here, some would imagine they were in Devon or Cornwall. They say noise for nice, orn for on, and zinc for sink.
That's about right, isn't it?
What goes you going out?
No, I go to jail.
The men work all day on the water, returning when they have their quota of crabs, what they call jimmies and souks.
If one boat breaks down, has any kind of engine trouble or anything, and he's not in this harbor of a night, there'll be 8 or 10 people get together and they'll say, well, he hasn't never come in yet, we better go out and look for him. And they'll go out and they'll look until they find him. They'll stay out all night long if they have to, just to find that one lost boat to help that fellow out.
There are still a few isolated language communities, like Tangier, dotted up and down the east coast of the United States. Down near Roanoke in North Carolina, there's a fishing community known locally as the Hoy-Toiders, because that's how they say high tide. Today, from Delaware and Maryland in the north to the Carolinas in the south, this tidewater English provides a vital clue to the original sound of American English. And the use of the stressed R, typical of much American speech today, finds its roots in forgotten communities like these.
The people knows each other, they help each other all they can, and that's what makes us all a community. There's an awful lot of brotherly love around this place.
There was always a devil-may-care side to the first adventures in the uncharted Americas. That was very much in keeping with the spirit of the Elizabethan age and its language, symbolized by William Shakespeare and his zestful use of English. A few years later, there was a different expedition to the New World. Far to the north of Jamestown, around the Massachusetts Bay, came a different breed of settler. Austere, rigorous Puritans, whose inflexible ideology would soon begin to temper the fire of the Virginians. Their literary counterpart was the Word of God himself, the Bible.
I'm going higher, yes, higher someday. I'm going higher to say, over the clouds and beyond the blue sky.
These thin-lipped zealots restricted their speech to the vocabulary of the King James Version, barely 8,000 words. They were, of course, the Pilgrim Fathers, who landed at Plymouth in 1620.
I'm going higher someday.
Plymouth Plantation in Massachusetts, New England, is a living history community. It is dedicated to recreating the sounds and sights of daily life in the 1620s. The inhabitants make a special study of the main varieties of English brought here by the Pilgrim Fathers.
Bring his place, plenty of match. We out to take foul.
They like to reproduce both the customs and the speech of the Puritans.
Well, how goes it then, mistress?
Oh, well, it is fine enough, but, well, it has been so cold.
Well, they do worship the very devil. Aye.
On the plantation, the English language research is directed by Jim Baker.
Because of the new program we have here with first-person interpretation, where people take on English characteristics and they act as if they were English, they have to know about England, and most of them have never been there. So what I've done, and some other people, we've gone over and gotten to every town that these people came from. There's over 30 different places. And of those, we go into each town, we find out what it was like to be there in the 17th century. We get the idea of what dialects were spoken, who were the leading landowners, what was the trade in that area, whether it was isolated or not, what the church was like, all the things that these people would have as memories.
The Pilgrims who emigrated to Plymouth came from all over England. Many of these first New Englanders originated in the south and east. But as the place names like Cambridge, Bedford, and Boston, Braintree, and Lincoln suggest, the largest group came from the eastern counties. The flat, cold fens of East Anglia, the Puritan stronghold. Jim Baker and his colleague Len Travers have come to this fenland village to research the speech of East Anglia. It's among the older working people here that they will find the richest examples of the local talk. And a good place to start their investigations is the local pub. On Saturday evenings, East Anglians gather here for what they call a tune-up. The American visitors are having a pint with Clifford Arbon, the local wheelwright. Clifford's strong East Anglian accent is a fine example of what they've come to hear.
Got burned more than once, I'll bet. Huh? Got burned more than once, I'll bet. Yeah.
Old Scott should fall down that handle of ham, go between me and now. And if you just stop, he said, don't bugger out them boys. Plenty more here.
I think so.
Up I pushed my window in a jiff. I saw a tabby cat outside. He was chasing another one round our yard. If that's your game, I cried. Why, it won't last very, very long. I won't last very, very long. I went downstairs and I got my gun. I popped a bullet up his hot cross bun. Tom said, that's a bullseye. His bell went ding, ding, dong. You've done quite enough, Tom, a little bit of fluff, but it won't last very, very long. Yes, sir.
Clifford's craft is as traditional as his talk.
I don't stuff in it.
That's how no ambo. Long while since that bit of wood was an acting bow.
Today, Clifford is having some help from his friend Reg Sillett. They both live in the depths of Suffolk.
You got the rabbits around your old farm?
All 5 out.
Unlike the West Country speakers, they don't stress their R's. They say bargain for bargain. Past, not past. And they pronounce new for new in the way that's typical of East Anglian English. They both have a long memory for the old words from the old days.
We still wheelwrighting work from an old farmer here now, and I had to go down to an old field one day, and he said to me, he said, you got to go right to further side. I said, what do you mean further? He said, he meant farther side, you see. The further side, he said. So he went across that old field, and I got across there, and I see an old bloke there. He said, where you going? I said, I come to the further side. He said, what do you mean further side? I said, I don't know. I said, more don't know farmer, I don't think. I come home there one day, I said to my granny, I said, I rent my Risbon. She said, Risbon? She said, yeah. I said, your shot sleeve, you see. They can't call that your sleeve, they call it your Risbon. All this is a Risbon, did you know that? Yeah, they call that Risbon. Yeah, and what else did they used to say? When there's a carton of hay and that, if they ain't got enough to top the stack up, they didn't say I want a big load, they say I want another little bargain. They call that a bargain. It didn't call it a small load, no, a little bargain.
Little bargain, yeah.
Yeah. That's when you got it there, that was the big.
The main thing to remember was your frail, boy.
Frail, yeah.
You've got to keep your frail way, because
Yeah.
if you lost that, you ain't got no grub in for the rest of the day.
What was a frail then?
Well, your dinner bag, you big dinner bag. You got to keep out of that.
Yeah. Did you have to wear lodges?
No, my father did, but I wouldn't be messed up with
Yeah,
that.
no strap around there.
No,
with
couldn't
the
mess up.
trousers up there, put high, and then they put no strap around there called a lodger.
Lodger,
Yeah. That's right.
Them days are gone, but...
They're all
you
gone,
know,
yeah.
Here in eastern England, we've got a completely different modern dialect from the one that we have over in the southwest of the country. There's no R after the vowels as we had turn and heard, and it's that freedom from the R after the vowels that is still to be heard in the New England states of America, because it's from here, from Cambridgeshire and Norfolk and Suffolk, that the Puritans went over to the eastern United States and took with them a completely different language, which is still identifiably different today.
Baker and Travers are here in East Anglia to find the roots of Puritan English.
Well, this is something.
Oh, yes. All the timber and those carved figures up there, very nice ones.
Church and parish records also tell them about the kind of people who emigrated to the New World. Today, they're on the trail of the Howland family, whose story provides an important clue to the making of American English. Henry Howland worshipped in this church and is buried here.
And of course, over here is old Henry himself, the plaque there.
One of his sons, John, was a pilgrim who crossed to America on the Mayflower. The pilgrims on board the Mayflower intended to make a landfall on the bountiful coast of Virginia. But wind, tide, and poor navigation swept them north that November to the wintry, inhospitable shores of the part of America that became New England. New Englanders, like Len Travers, feel that it was East Anglia which played the decisive part in shaping their accent.
Many feel that the New England dialect is based primarily upon the English East Anglian dialect. There are reasons to believe this. Both the East Anglians and New Englanders in general have a tendency to drop their post-vocalic R's, as in Harvard, or Yard, or Car. That's a rather common aspect. And yes, I heard a lot of that in East Anglia, to be sure. Some people pick up their dialects rather quickly. Some of them have a natural advantage. For instance, if a New Englander is going to play an East Anglian, they have a natural advantage in it, and they find the dialect usually easier to pick up. Whereas if they must portray someone from Zummerzet, they find that a bit more difficult to do, because they must now pronounce their R's when they never have done before.
A living example of a modern New England accent, inherited from his mother, is Jim Baker's.
I mean, you hear a certain East Anglian tone to some of the people that speak here today, I think. My mother has been taped by people doing a linguistic atlas of New England. So apparently my accent, if as much as it's like hers, is one of the old Plymouth accents. People say it sounds like Maine, but then Maine was connected with Plymouth back in those days. But it is an old Plymouth accent of sorts.
And left.
How language changes is often mysterious. Although the main traceable elements were brought here by East Anglian settlers, theirs was not the only accent. It's the march of history that gives us the contemporary speech of New England.
And halt!
Over 300 years later, the Howland family still prospers in the same town. Today, some of John Howland's descendants run the Mayflower Fish Restaurant, a stone's throw from a replica of the Mayflower itself. The Americans who eat and work here have a modern New England accent that has evolved significantly from the English of the Pilgrims.
It's a lot of fun working here because we meet people from all over the country, And people are, pretty good sports. They're anxious to try new things that they've never had before. So they come in and they ask a lot of questions about, well, what's a quahog, or what's the difference between a clam and an oyster, and a lot of them order lobster.
Small name alive. Is this for here? Would you like to try them out?
I come from down east and I like fish.
Well, there's a lot of different types of people who come in. Most of our business is local people. We have a lot of the older Plymothians, a lot of descendants of the Pilgrims, the Brewsters and the Howlands who own this place are. There's quite a few throughout the town.
In many ways more conservative than British English, there are words still spoken here whose meanings have survived in the United States long after they were lost at home. I guess for I think, gotten for got, mad for angry, and fall for autumn would all have been familiar to Shakespeare and his contemporaries.
Sometimes you get a lot of customers who come in here and they'll be really mad at the fish prices or how high they are. They get really mad at that. They don't really care for it too much. I guess I live in Plymouth the rest of my life. I'd like to, and I guess my kids will also.
Today, the New England accent is found from Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont in the north to Connecticut and Rhode Island in the south. But it all started here in Massachusetts. In the generation after the first landing at Plymouth Rock, some 200 ships sailed here, swelling the population to about 250,000. The majority of the New Englanders came from London and East Anglia, the so-called East Midlands. Farther south in Virginia, as we've seen, most of the first settlers came from the West Country. So the English of the East Midlands and the English of the West Country lie at the heart of American English. And it's from these sources that we get the characteristic flat A, dance instead of dance, and the final R, mother instead of mother, of most American speech. But these first English Americans were not alone. As well as the Indians, the Iroquois, and the Algonquin beyond the Palisades, there were rival Europeans, French, German, Spanish, and Dutch. And soon from the British Isles, there were the land-hungry Scots and Irish. In the end, American English would be influenced by these and many other nations in a series of vital blood transfusions. But at the dawn of this new chapter in the story of English, we should perhaps not forget that Polyglot American is founded on an English rock, the sounds and sayings of William Shakespeare and the King James Bible.
The line is gone out.
Live from our Oklahoma City studios, be a part of OETA's Broadcast Community Center grand opening, Saturday night at 8.
General Foods, where ideas are growing to satisfy a demanding world. And the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation. The companion book to the Story of English is available through this toll-free number and in bookstores everywhere. To order your copy now, call 1-800-441-3000.
Being a doctor is a license to be nosy.
To some extent, yes.
I have, as a physician, I have a primary obligation to you, but I am also a citizen, and I have an obligation to society.
I feel a filter coming across the information flow.
Always, because I treat you as a human being.
Join us for the first program of the series, Managing Our Miracles, Truth and Confidences.
Tuesday evening at 9.
Trail of events from some point in the past to a piece of modern technology is rather like a detective story, with you as the detective. Why those inventions happened is a fascinating blend of accident, genius, craftsmanship, geography, religion, war, money, ambition. Given what they knew at the time, and a moderate amount of what's up here, I hope to show you that you or I could have done just what they did, or come close to it.
In the premiere episode of The Living Planet, journey with host David Attenborough as he reveals some fascinating evidence concerning the Earth's origin. While viewing the rich extremes in nature, you'll learn what forces separated the 7 continents, and why the Himalayas now house the remains of sea creatures in the building of the Earth, next time on The Living Planet.
I'm the city editor. I decide what stories you'll write and when you'll write them.
And I did something right? I don't believe it.
I'm Marty Stauffer. Don't miss a single weekly adventure of Wild America.
Make the connection with the day the universe changed, starting October 13th.